Welcome back, everybody, to the World Esports Championship for Hearthstone North American Qualifiers. Brad versus Reels, game number 3 is about to be underway. Let's jump into it and see if Reels can go for the sweep with his handlock. Brad is down to his Miracle Rogue, and will have to rely on one of its worst matchups in order to pull out of this and stay alive in the tournament. Now, granted, if there is one deck to kind of pull back the swing.
Whoops. Taking it lightly and taking it in stride.
Sure.
Well, it's a strength. That's a marquee strength of players that are good. By the way, is they're able to recognize their mistakes and understand that it's an opportunity to improve. And that's exactly what Reels is doing here. So
love it.
This is one of the reasons. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why players like this get good, is because when they make mistakes, they take it in stride. They move forward with it. They understand that they're human. At the end of the day, nobody plays perfect. So I think it's a pretty clean-cut decision here for him to recognize it and be lighthearted about it, because at the end of the day, it's just, I mean, sometimes you brain fart. What can you do?
Well, you can own it up, and that's exactly what Reels does. And you can move on and continue to play with a really good opening hand against Miracle, which has a Twilight Drake and a Mountain Giant. Those are the cards that you definitely want to see in the opening hand of Miracle. Draw a lot of removal. Yep. But if on the other side, Brad has some of those cards you want to have as well. If you're the Miracle player, you have the Gadget Stand, you have the prep.
Yeah, that Gadget Stand pickup's pretty big. 2 Eviscerates, Preparation Sap. This is going to be a tough game, I think, for Brad. He's gonna have the removal to deal with some of these threats, but Reels has got 2 back-to-back threats, and I think that's the kind of pressure that when you see it from handlock, it gets close to the border of unrecoverable for the rogue player.
I mean, he's even got a primer. You can have the Farseer come out to kind of test the waters a little bit, see what his opponent has, drop his Twilight Drake or Mountain Giant, and then just continue to build the momentum off of there. And the worst part is, he's got like another card to even heal up if he wants to kind of establish the board. And whenever he picks it from this point on, it's just going to be a cherry on top for Reels.
Yeah. This is a very strong scaling from Reels this game. And Brad doesn't really have any responses so far. Ooh, Second Auctioneer is a bad pickup. How this next couple turns pans out is really going to decide this game. Reels has sort of a tough decision, too. Does he want to drop Mountain Giant or does he want to drop Twilight Drake?
All right, well, Brad's also thinking about another decision here. Or is he just trying to contemplate whether or not he wants what he's doing the next turn?
He might be trying to send mixed signals as well. I cannot imagine that you're ever considering using preparation and eviscerate here.
Is he considering attacking the Farseer?
Oh, yes, he's debating the attack with the dagger. I don't mind attacking the Farseer here. You take a lot of damage from it, but that may be what you need to do to stabilize the board position.
Okay, well, he is going to go for the pass.
Turn. Gosh, I didn't even think about that.
Leroy pickup, and he has the power overwhelming. Reels could end this series like in the 1/4 the time it took to do the previous one.
Yep. This is another tough decision too. Does he want to? Because he could go preparation, eviscerate, and drop Bancleaf, or he can play Auctioneer and preparation sap. 2 very different routes.
Oh, but how afraid are you of like an Iron Beak Owl just in response?
Yeah, that's something to think about. Or even Mortal Coil. You don't want to get your Auctioneer just attacked and Mortal Coiled. There's a lot of different cards in Reels' range that can deal with this Auctioneer, but you have 2 of them, so I don't think that you're not necessarily afraid to lose it. In fact, I kind of think you want your opponent to kill the first one.
Huh.
The problem is that he's losing a preparation for a big Van Cleef turn. So if his opponent, like wow, this is a really weird play. That's the one I definitely didn't expect.
Okay, just straight up sap and a 4/4 Van Cleef. Opens himself up to the Soulfire.
I'm a little bit curious about that.
I am a little curious too. I think he just really values his preparation and the extra mana you get.
This is actually, this is actually really smart, because this Van Cleef doesn't necessarily have a target on its forehead. And the fact that it's going to be dealing 4 extra points of damage, I think, really makes a big difference.
Okay. I mean, maybe
now he's looking at being able to save one of his eviscerates. Oh, Reels really heads up play if he makes this one. Yep, that's exactly how he read it too. He's forcing his... Wow, so he didn't cut a Siphon Soul for the Black Knight. So the Black Knight's just in the deck. We haven't seen a Mortal Coil yet. I don't think he's running Mortal Coils.
That could be a possibility. You know, Mortal Coil is there to thin out the deck anyways, while being able to answer to small little minions and aggro.
Ooh,
Give your ability to boost something like Hellfire.
That poison's a little late.
Yeah, but at least it allows him to fail his mana curve with things. In preparation, Eviscerate can kind of continue on. Backstab is nice so that he can deal with the Giant. And the miracle continues.
Do you take the 8 damage here to deal? I think you take the 8 damage to deal with it here.
Yeah.
If you have no other option. Let me ask you this. Say you draw preparation off this Eviscerate, then do you take 8 damage?
Here we go.
That's the real question.
I think so. Oh, that's a really tough question to ask. Yeah. I'm not really the miracle expert.
Ooh. Iron Beak Owl would have been not a bad pickup on the Van Cleef turn. Would have given him an extra minion.
All right, well, Brad actually has really quality minions like Azure Drakes. Yep. And this is where he can start tilting it in his favor.
Right. This is something that actually I saw in Tavern Takeover Strife Crow do. He kept an Azure Drake and an Elvish Inventor in his opening hand versus Handlock, and I was really confused. And sort of what you're trying to get at is that once you scale into this point of the game, if you're able to just drop these efficient minions, you use the minions as a damage investment to shore up your removal spells. And again, you sort of turn into the control deck. You're able to just kill everything that the Handlock player plays. Now, the deck has changed a lot since then. Handlock now has picked up things like Sludge Belcher and Loatheb, but the principle is sort of the same. You want to be getting a lot of big value out of these minions in the mid game.
Absolutely.
This Azure Drake is very threatening if you're reals.
He's going to play his own Drake, or at least he's with the idea. Also, when he picked up Loatheb, he was a little sad because that was his answer to at least the first Gadget Sand. But at least having it's pretty nice for future options. What do you think about this Iron Beak Owl inclusion? Do you think the spell power is going to be that much of a big difference for him?
It's not that it's a huge difference, but I think it's a difference enough. And I think the other thing to consider is that he just wants to get another minion on the board. Like, when do you have a better turn to use Iron Beak Owl? I think is what he's thinking about. He doesn't need the cards in his hand, and frankly, he does need some of this damage to be scattered. And right now, the 3 damage from the dagger, it doesn't just poke down the Iron Beak Owl, it actually forces out an overkill. Unless his opponent's got a spell of some sort. So I think this is as good a turn as you're going to get as any.
Well, Brad's going to lead off with the Farce here. You know, I thought it was kind of common to just keep up the draws and see what you can kind of do with something like maybe second Azure Drake, but he probably has another plan with the Eviscerate and the SI7 agent to be able to take out this Drake right here. Save that sap for when you really need it.
Yep. No reason to use the second sap here, I don't think.
Use the Drake, okay.
I like using the Drake here. The Owl isn't challenging either of your minions right now.
Sure.
And again, this is sort of the purpose of the Drake, is to help get the minion damage value, so you can literally kill everything that your Handlock opponent does. And then once they've faltered is where you start to make your push. Yeah,
Eviscerate's a little bit more flexible too. You have the second Azure Drake to add that spell damage. Okay, well, Reels is going to go for a board clear. Put his opponent at 13. He has Leroy. If he picks up like a Faceless and his opponent can't deal with it, then this series is over. Brad acquires the Deadly Poison. So that can start some chain draws if he decides to play his Gadget Sand. Brad's still looking for ways to kind of pair his damage together. He's got Leroy, but he's still looking for things like the Shadow Steps, or if he has Cold Bloods or Sinister Strikes.
This is kind of dangerous actually, because I don't think he doesn't really want to take 4 more damage from this. This actually might be a sap turn.
Okay, well, we'll see what he gets from this Gadget Sand. I think Gadget Sand loses a lot of value too in the upcoming turns if you get closer to 0. You don't want to draw ways for you to just die.
I'd like to see sap here. I think you sap and start making a push. Like, your opponent's slowed down a little bit. They're going to have to deal with this Auctioneer. You're going to have Loatheb to follow up. Like, you're going into turn 10 with Azure Drake and Loatheb. And I think it's about as strong as turn as you're going to hope to get.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of going to 12 health, but sometimes you might have to live with it. I mean, he's thinking about what he really can do from this turn, and how you kind of pair it up for maybe a lethal in the following turns.
Yeah, after he takes damage and heals, he's only at 12.
Yeah.
That's not a safe life total.
Definitely not.
Okay, well, he's going to go for it.
Shiv off the top, and now his opponent's
business.
at 9.
Reels has a couple of outs for lethal here.
Or Power Overwhelming. Faceless. Defender Vargas is only 1 more damage.
I think he should life tap here.
Lotheb is also a strong option to kind of answer Miracle Rogue.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you know, he's basically going to neuter him specifically, so that way he can't do any kind of big draws this turn.
This is a very different route than I would have taken. Violet Teacher!
Whoa!
Whoa! That is really strange. I have not seen that ever in Miracle.
Huh. I mean, it makes sense in terms of the basic synergy, right? Violet Teacher draws a lot, or you make a lot of minions because you're drawing a lot of cards off of spells. But it's just curious. That's the 4-drop you choose to go with. Some people choose Gnomish Inventor, some choose Sen'jin Shieldmaster for the taunt.
This is a really bad spot to be in, by the way. You're at 9 health. 7 mana Shiv. Oh my gosh.
Well, a 5 mana preparation.
He's going to have to heal here. Oh my gosh. This is not the board position he wanted.
Not at all. He's not even any closer to his lethal. His opponent's at 30 health.
Real still got spells for lethals. That's not going to do it. But gosh, can he put together a strong board.
Yeah, I like tapping here. Seeing what you get.
Oh,
Double Watcher. Wow. Okay.
Your opponent just got rid of their Poison Dagger, and both of their Auctioneers are gone. That's a lot of damage your opponent will have to invest in clearing this board. And that's one step closer to Reels taking away the potential for his opponent to actually kill him. And Reels is still at 28.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, even if he drew into his damage, he wasn't able to kind of finish it. He's just his opponent's too high of a health. All right, Brad does have a Drake. Dig deeper. He has Sap number 2.
This has got to be a Lotheb turn. If your opponent Shadow Flames you, I mean, you're in a tough spot anyway. How on earth do you deal with this turn?
Lotheb doesn't even stop Shadow Flame.
I know. That's the other thing, too. It stops your opponent from developing more if they have Shadow Flame, though.
Sure. Can't Giant and Shadow Flame or something if he has it.
So many options.
But what else does he have to develop? Like, you've already taken out a Mountain Giant. You've seen both Twilight Drakes at this point.
Oh, man.
I think you just got to put pressure on the board. He's got to get something rolling.
One more damage. He's 1 damage off of ending this series.
Oh my gosh.
Tap. Sun Fury.
He's still putting together a huge board.
How scary is this actually if you're Reels too? If there's a way to kind of deal with these, do you feel like you just die? Your opponent has 12 damage on board.
Well, that is something he has to consider still, is that
Can you just...
if there's like Assassin's Blade into Deadly Poison and Blade Flurry, that clears the board.
Yeah, he might just die.
Yeah.
So in that respect, do you favor the second taunt or the Sludge Belcher?
I would go with the Sludge Belcher. I think the Sludge Belcher puts a much better amount of pressure on the board. I would play the Sun Fury Protector as well. I think you just put it out there and hope that he can't clear all your stuff. There's a lot of merit to holding it still, too, though. I think Sludge Belcher is definitely better than Black Knight, though.
I like holding on to Sun Fury because of the Molten Giant synergy, but you might not ever get to that point anyways. Molten Giant is often a dead card.
I don't like taunting up these two, though. You definitely don't need to do that. But at the same time, if he just distracts his opponent into killing all his stuff, he just needs the 1 extra point of damage. So this is fine. I mean, there's so many different ways to go when you play this turn that I don't know if it really matters in the long run, because you're just trying to stick 1 minion down, so that way you have 1 extra point of damage for your Leroy, so you don't have to draw it. That's his goal going into this next turn.
How does Brad get past his Great Wall of Reels? And even so, is it possible for him to even end the game in the next couple turns? 3 cards left. If he had Blade Flurry, that might make his life a lot easier, because he did have the Fountain.
Possible. It's definitely possible to end it, but the problem is he's got to stay alive first, which I don't know if it's possible to stay alive without crippling the amount of damage potential you have.
He's got 18 from the hand, and he can continue to load the board with what he has as well.
Is he going to SI7 his own Blood Mage?
But then you have 5 mana left. What can you really do to squeeze it in there? He is going to SI7.
Oh, weird. What is he trying to draw? I don't...
Backstab.
That's going to
be able to move one of the minions.
Wow.
Okay, so he gets one of these ways to completely take out the damage on the board.
Do you play Violet Teacher here? I think you got to.
So. I think you so.
Wait,
You're running out of cards.
Should he have played Violet Teacher first then?
Oh, he should have.
I don't know. Maybe he.
Yeah.
The only reason he wouldn't have done it is if he doesn't want to clog his board, so that way Leroy can actually get down with Shadow Steps.
Oh well, he draws
but Soulfire. That is a huge draw. The real finally gets it.
After a pretty tense moment, you know, we thought maybe Brad could climb back into it, but Reels is going to advance 3-0 and kind of balance out that previous series, winning and advancing to the losers round number 2, where he'll play against Strife Crow. Let's take a look at the bracket to see where everything stands, Nathan, and to examine real quickly. As you see, Brad has been eliminated, and Team Don't Kick My Robot has been kicked out of the tournament. We have our second round set, which is Tides of Time versus Raynad. It's going to be coming up next. And Strife Crow versus Reels. So a lot of really popular players and streamers here in the last 4 here of the lower bracket. Any opinions on these matchups, Admirable, as we kind of get ready for a break?
I think the Tides of Time versus Raynad match is something that everyone wants to see. I kind of like watching team matches because it gives you a really interesting perspective of how their practice lines up and how they choose to apply that going forward. Because they know stuff about each other that a lot of other players don't know. So how do they choose to use that information? And then, of course, the Strife Crow versus Reels matchup. This is a clash of titans in the loser bracket, which is, I mean, it's gonna, again, it has to happen at some point. But golly, that's a match to look out for. Those are 2 colossal players, and I think both of them have fantastic lineups for this tournament as well. 3 more great matches for sure, no matter how this bracket ends up panning out.
It's sad that only one of them can survive the day, but we'll find out who gets one step closer when we return to the WEC North American Qualifiers. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, to WC NA Qualifiers. It's time for our third series of the day between Tides of Time versus Reynad. It's a Temple Storm team kill. On the one hand, it's sad to see a team kill for Temple Storm if you're a fan of the team. On the other, at least one of them is guaranteed to go in the top four. But it's a battle of teammates, it's a battle of friends, it's a battle of practice partners. And as you touched upon earlier, that might spawn really fun, interesting games that are kind of out of the norm for normal top-tier players.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, both these players have pretty different lineups as well. I know that both of them are playing Zoo, which is kind of to be expected with how powerful it got with the new Nax releases. But Deathwing Warrior and not Deathwing Warrior are definitely very two different approaches into how you intend to win this tournament. And I'm curious how these players are going to veto as well. This veto, I think, is going to say a lot about how they perceive their opponent in this matchup, which is something that you get a rare glimpse of in tournaments because a lot of these players are kind of inexperienced versus each other, but these players should indeed have a lot of practice.
We'll take a look at the brackets before we move on and explain a little bit about the two players and their veto process. So Amaz and Brad are the first two players eliminated, but we're about to find out the next two will be Reynad, Tides, Strife Crow, or Reels. Four guys where if you told me that they were the top four of the tournament, not in the bottom four at the moment, then I would have believed you. Because these guys, you have the opportunity. They have the star power in terms of the name. Firebat and Alchemix, two of the darker horses of the entire tournament, sit and await the winner of this entire lower bracket in day number 3.
Yeah, that's something that I'm not surprised by at all. I actually, going into this tournament, I predicted that Firebat or Reels would be in the finals, and that I wouldn't have been surprised to see both of them there as well. So to me, it's no surprise to see Firebat going 2-0. But I've practiced a little bit with Firebat, and I've spoken with him, and I've seen some of his play. And he's an incredibly strong player who really has these matches mapped out. And Alchemist, after watching him play yesterday, no surprise to see him in the finals either. He was able to take a 3-0 over Tides with Warrior, and his Warrior deck seems very well prepared for this tournament as well. He understood that Sludge Belcher is one of those cards that Warrior needed. It just needed that extra bit of defense to hold off into the end game. And it's at the bottom half of the bracket. This is the nature of these 8-person tournaments where you have a stacked 8. Is that there's going to be names where you're like, what? When you look at the losers bracket, and that's exactly what we're seeing here.
Definitely. So we're gonna get ready for our next series of Tide of Time versus Reynad. Let's take a look at the veto process and move along to discuss what these guys have prepared for the series. Tides has vetoed Miracle Rogue. It seems like that's what his MO is, just not want to deal with it in any capacity. And Reynad, in the meantime, has banned his opponent Zoo, a deck that he's also said that he thinks is insanely powerful in the current metagame. What do you think about this process here, Admirable?
Well, it's sort of curious to me because I know that Warrior a lot of times has a pretty good matchup versus Zoo, but Reynad's got a little bit of an atypical Warrior with Ysera and with Deathwing in the lineup. So it makes a lot of sense, I think, to ban Zoo because that could be a weaker matchup for him. He definitely doesn't want to be playing the Zoo versus Zoo matchup. I think it's a matchup that a lot of players want to avoid. And at the same time, Zoo's also pretty strong against Hunter. So it makes a lot of sense, I think, to ban it here. But from Tide's perspective, I think you got to ban Miracle Rogue. It's a major difference between having a Druid and having a Warrior here. So it makes sense. It makes sense to ban Zoo, but it hurts to not. I'm sorry, it makes sense to veto Zoo, but it hurts to not veto Rogue. But you got to make sacrifices somewhere.
Sure. And this is where the teammates start to differentiate as well. If I can share a little insight, I know the Temple Storm guys, as much as they all love creating their own unique decks, they also disagree a ton about what's a good deck versus what's a bad deck. And oftentimes, it kind of escalates to the point where they're like, oh, well, let's play a best of 5, and I'll 3-0 you with my Warrior. It's like, well, I'll actually 3-0 you with my Hunter. And these guys end up practicing a ton and trying to compare whose decks are better. So, these guys do have different opinions. You might see some of that flavorful stuff. I don't even know if Tides of Time was the one who recommended Deathwing, but I'm pretty sure Reynad is the one who kind of understood it a little bit better in terms of how he wants to build his Warrior, is able to incorporate that. And I think it's cool to see these clash of styles, even amongst teammates.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Again, so you're touching on you have a very unique perspective in that you get to kind of witness these guys practice and see their conversation and how it pans out. And that's a luxury that I don't have with these particular players. I have it with some, but not with these. And just something that I always liked about Tempo Storm is deck building. I think it's absolutely the #1 strength that they hold is their deck building process. They go into every single tournament very prepared. They have new cards that are coming in every single tournament as well, and they're making a difference also. So it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, you have places to improve, but you're definitely ahead of the curve, I think, when deck building is concerned.
What do you think about the first classes that are going to be selected here? We do have one more minute before these guys end up starting the game because we're trying to make sure the delay is set at a certain time, so that way we have no complications with stream complications. So real quick, if you kind of make a prediction of what you guys would start off with.
Well, I think if you look at what's happening, I think Reynad doesn't want to play a mirror match. He strikes me as someone who doesn't like mirror matches. So in that regard, I think Warrior is probably your safest lead because you also don't want to run Zoo into Miracle, and you do want to run Zoo into Druid or Hunter. So if you lead with that and your opponent leads with Miracle, you're losing one of your two of your best matchups is just having your Zoo run into Druid or run into Hunter. And Warrior doesn't look like it's very appealing to play against really any of these three classes. It's just sort of neutral. And then, of course, you would ideally want the Hunter to be running into Druid and not to be running into Miracle Rogue. So I think it makes a lot of sense here to lead with Warrior and then reassess how you move forward from there.
All right, well, let's find out what happens in the first game between Reynad and Tides. Jump to the board and find out what's the selection. It is Hunter versus Warlock. The Zoo will be the leadoff for Reynad, and Tides will have to rely on his Hunter.
So the only other thing to consider is that Zoo is strong versus two of the decks in his lineup. So just based purely on statistics, I mean, if you had no idea what your opponent was going to choose, it makes a lot of sense to do it this way because it's just you have a 2/3 chance to hit a favorable matchup.
Certainly, I think so. Unleash the Hounds is one of those cards that allows you to climb back and fight against Zoo appropriately as well. So as much as it might be a tougher matchup, you do have answers.
Yeah, Unleash the Hounds is one of them too. You need to be drawing Unleash the Hounds, and you ideally want to be drawing Starving Buzzard with it, and Explosive Trap also helps. The only thing that matters now is that Explosive Trap can help activate your opponent's eggs.
Well,
wow.
Well then,
and picks a Timberwolf.
huh.
That's the ball. Wow, that's a good hand. Give your Tides.
That is probably the best that you can expect to fight Zoo. You have the card draw, you have the way to buff, you have a good leadoff card to see if maybe it draws and bolster your ranks, and you even have Direwolf Alpha to pick good trades, assuming you need more than a Timberwolf.
Yep.
My gosh.
Is this little 1/1 going to trick Reynad into attacking his face again? Remember, we saw him not attack a Timberwolf because he had a 7-power minion? And rightfully so, it was 7 damage. Oh my gosh, now Direwolf Alpha's going to get value.
Direwolf Alpha is going to get sick value. This web spinner, let's see what he gets off of it. A second Timberwolf. That's not so bad.
It's really not right now.
My goodness. Well, this is going to be an interesting develop. I don't know how it's actually going to pan out, because Zoo is still really explosive, but I feel like Tides has almost all the answers that he would hope to have, at least for one board clear.
He's going to take a little bit of damage, but in the process, he's going to be able to clear. Something there's a lot of merit, I think, to kill commanding the 2/1 here. To put more
build
stuff on your
more
board. Yeah.
Well, he chooses to kill command the 3/2, opt to take less damage. Reynad draws into his Direwolf Alpha, kind of has to plan out how he wants to utilize his resources while being able to execute a Doomguard in the coming turns.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think you play Shattered Sun Cleric here.
So many possibilities.
Care to elaborate?
Well, I want a life tap for sure. And I can develop my board basically just as much by playing the Direwolf Alpha. And this also keeps me from getting Explosive Trapped. Like, Direwolf Alpha is going to get Explosive Trapped, and that's fine, but now you're losing one of your ways to protect it. He's actually just going to extend to the board. This is fine also because this is sort of telltale that he wants to get the Doomguard active as quickly as possible. So I expect him to play whatever he draws next turn as well. So two different directions to go. Like life tapping, because one of the ways that Warlock loses in this matchup is when it just runs out of cards. So like, if Tides can take a few points of damage and then weather the storm with something like an Unleash combo, and then if Reynad's out of gas after that, Tides is able to kind of sit back and start playing powerful minions and recapture control of the game. And
this is another telegraph to Tides, by the way, now that he used his Huffer directly into the Haunted Creeper that was buffed. Reynad has to be really afraid of the combo, but it's not like he has a choice at the moment.
Well, it's really showing that he it's one of two things. Either number one, I have Unleash and I'm going to unleash you, or number two, I really need to draw Unleash the Hounds. So please, dear God, let it happen. And this is the kind of spot that Reynad falls into where I don't think he has an option other than to extend in the board. It's a lot of damage coming through.
He is going to put him at 12, so it's not even... He could clear the board, but still the fact is Tide still has to address what's on it. And he's going to use his Unleash immediately, which puts it at a full board. And interestingly enough, he has to kill something off before he drops the Timberwolf. But he's going to be drawing a full hand.
Oh my gosh, he even gets Hunter's Mark to follow up on the Doomguard too.
Wow, Tide's not skipping a beat. Does not want to get cut by the rope whatsoever.
Yep. He already knows how his attack's going to go. All 6 minions and all 6 of your minions. So it doesn't really matter the order that much. And my goodness, look at that hand. He's actually going to burn a card next turn, and I don't even think it matters. He's got 10 in the grip versus the opponent's 1. He's got an answer for the Doomguard. This is the kind of spot where you really don't want to be in, but it's honestly, this might have even been unavoidable if you really want to go back and look at how the turns were going to develop. Even if Reynad didn't extend into the board, your opponent's still sweeping your board and drawing 3 or 4 cards. So what's the difference between 4 cards and 6 cards? The difference is a couple cards in your grip. So his thought process was that even if I get swept, I'm not going to recover anyway, so I have to just extend and hope Doomguard can close it.
Well, so you're going to see... Oh, well, Stone Post board does end up getting burned. Reynad does get that Doomguard Hunter marked immediately, but he is also putting his opponent at 7 health, so there is a combination of draws that could end, but this is where cards like Houndmaster also does a lot of heavy lifting in the matchup.
Yep. Tide's really got to consider how he plays this order. Does he want to Houndmaster this turn? I think that's a major question he's asking himself.
I think so.
Yep.
And he has second Houndmaster, so there's a way for him to kind of continue on.
And now he's actually counting whether or not the Timberwolf is worth more than the Buzzard is, because he already has so many cards. Does he even need to draw more cards?
Is that a mistake from Tides?
I don't know.
He didn't attack with the Buzzard before he attacked with the Timberwolf, so he missed 1 damage.
Oh, is that... Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, he did.
Yep. So he missed 1 damage in that respect. Reynad draws the Ruby next, so he whiffs. I believe there is a combination draws that can help him win if he like gets Soulfire twice. I don't think he used the Soulfire. If he's able to kind of burst through and somehow... Nope, I don't think he's bursting through anymore. Well, so there is ways out of it, but...
He's going to need running Soulfires here, I think, to end this game. I don't think there's any other way. Maybe, I guess, Hellfire into Soulfire? I don't think he's running Hellfire, though.
That'd be crazy. Hellfire into Soulfire. Well, that's 1.
Oh, gosh.
He's not even going to wait for it, because he might tap into something like Doomguard. I mean, do you play a Direwolf Alpha? Does it have an impact?
Direwolf Alpha has no impact on this game. You have to draw second Soulfire right here, or you lose the game.
Well, you never know. Maybe he's able to pick something up right here with the second tap.
Oh, jeez.
18 cards left. What is the
18
probability?
18 to 1.
Oh,
not quite today.
Well, you know, he got halfway there, which is already pretty decent odds to even top pick the Soulfire. He was not even that far into his deck. The probability of that happening was very low.
Yeah, 18 to 1. I mean, it's a little bit more than 5%, but it's better than 0 though. So it's a spot where you're in where that's the spot you got in. And the overextension, it's like, again, there's 2 schools of thought on it. Where it's like, number one, you can overextend into the board and hope your opponent doesn't have a combo. And when they don't have the combo, you're going to win basically every single time. So you're forcing your opponent to have a very particular portion of their range. And if you don't overextend, your opponent still gets a lot of value out of combo, but you have the opportunity to recovery. So it's weighing like which one of those is more important. And that's something that's very hard to do. It's very rooted in experience and tracking your stats and seeing which one is better. Not just kind of using your instincts and going for it. I would tend to favor careful play in that situation, because I think it's very easy for a zoo to recover, because your opponent, you find your opponent in the same position where they have to keep sweeping your board. But I certainly can't fault anyone for going for it.
All right, well, now Reynad has lost one of his more powerful decks in this lineup to be able to answer Druid and his Hunter. And it seems like Reynad hasn't had the best luck with Zoo versus Hunter in general. He's not able to kind of use it to snipe decks. Now he's down to his Hunter and his Warrior. I guess, the Hunter Mirror, I gotta say, is really difficult sometimes to climb back. Initiative is just so powerful, and the hero power just really keeps adding pressure. Like at one point, there's zero incentive for you to trade. You just keep attacking, and then they have to kind of trade back. Depends on how things kind of pan out. So
Yeah, I think
it's really difficult to kind of approach that matchup confidently, in my opinion.
I think I sort of agree with you. It's like a lot of it comes down to who ends up grabbing tempo and taking control of the game. I think Warrior's a total flying Q here. You are a little bit afraid of something like Savannah Highmane, but you can recover from it, I think, with cards like Sludge Belcher. So I'm okay with either lead here, but you're down a game, and down a game in mirror matches is where you start to hurt the most, I think. It's a position you don't want to be in. And if you lead with Hunter here, your opponent can just play Miracle Rogue. So it's just like, it's kind of tough because you really want that Hunter deck to be lining up against that Druid and not to be lining up against Rogue.
I agree, and I think we're gonna find out if Reynad's gonna be playing Warrior or he's gonna be playing Hunter in a sec. I do lean towards the Warrior side. I think you do have opportunities and premium removal. You have life gain to kind of put yourself out of range. The problem with the Hunter Mirror is sometimes if you seize the tempo, if you get the Savannah Highmane first and there's no way to kind of contest it accurately, then again they just run away with damage. They have flares to shut down any kind of secrets or freezing traps, and in a way, it's like the Hunter sometimes is the best poison to killing Hunter. It's funny how that works out sometimes. So we're gonna find out what happens in game number 2. So let's jump into the board and find out what happens.
Yeah, I like Warrior here.
Okay. Opening hands. Gets a Savannah Highmane. How important is that to keep? Or do you keep it at all?
I would never mulligan Savannah Highmane in this matchup. Ever. It's like the number one. I don't understand that at all. Like it's like the most important card in the matchup. It's like I would just keep 2 of them if I had them. The way you win this game is you just jam down 2 Savannah Highmanes and hope that your opponent has to expend so much removal on them or on your other stuff that they just don't have all the removal for Savannah Highmane. I don't really understand it. Like this is a matchup that I have played a lot, and Savannah Highmane it's so critically important to be dropping on turn 6. You mulligan every card for Savannah Highmane, and you keep all your Savannah Highmanes. Like, I think you're even supposed to mulligan tracking here.
For Savannah Highmane?
Well, you can tracking for Savannah Highmane, but, like, you just want more chances at Savannah Highmane, and then if you happen to draw trackings, you're not really, like, happy to use tracking in this matchup until you're ready to finish your opponent is the thing. Because if you clip some of your cards that you need in the matchup, it ends up being really bad. You just want to save it and dig for it at the end.
That's fair. I think this is a pretty decent start for both these guys. They got answers, and they got a lot of tools. Tides does have this web spinner start to kind of line things up and see where they can go. Hopefully he picks up an earlier drop. That's kind of what web spinner does. And maybe it might be useless, but maybe it might be epic. We never know.
This is a bad new spot, by the way, is when Armorsmith can just keep chipping away at all these minions. And I think the last one it's going to end up attacking is web spinner.
I like Fiery War Axe over the Ghoul. Reynad did do this thing, I think, in a previous series. I believe it was his first one against Strife, where he went for Ghoul over the Fiery War Axe when he tried to address a Haunted Creeper. You need to be able to do that in the right order, so that way, when it procs, you're able to kind of take out these 1/1s. So it's something that he kind of learned. I remember him specifically stating that he needed to do that better.
Yeah, sequencing is really important in this matchup. You don't want to be playing a Ghoul outside of when you need to. A really good chance to grab tempo here with Fiery War Axe.
All right. Gonna deny him the ability to Houndmaster the following turn. Let's see what card Tides gets. It's a Kodo. Whoa.
1 mana off.
Awesome. I mean, it's going to be useful in this matchup for sure.
I don't know how many traps he has in his deck, so that's something to consider. Like, is this his only bow? Does he have more traps? How important is it to just be using this bow charge here?
Yeah, how many bows does he even plays? This is 1 bow. Well, he does have Animal Companion available to him right here.
I think with Animal Companion, it really kind of makes it spells out your decision for you.
Okay. It's a Leok.
Leok actually doesn't feel that bad here. It's a pretty inconvenient minion to kill.
Sure, sure.
I wonder if Misha would have prevented him from attacking with the fire. I'm sorry, with the earth and with the longbow or not. Eaglehorn bow. I don't even know the name of this card anymore. Eaglehorn bow.
They all kind
Like,
of
if he
bleed
goes-
between the lines after a certain point, man. I totally get your vibe.
if he makes Misha there, does he attack with the Eagle Horn bow?
What now?
Because he attacks with whether he makes Huffer or whether he makes. Actually, if he makes Huffer, does he attack it with Huffer instead and keep his Eagle Horn bow?
Yeah, I think so. If it's Huffer for sure. You don't. I mean, you can if you leave up the Acolyte, you make yourself vulnerable to some shenanigans like Whirlwind, into like Cruel Taskmaster, trade, draw 3 cards, etc. All right, Raynat picks up Sylvanas, by the way, at the top, and he's contemplating how he can combine maybe Fiery War Axe with the Ghoul. And of course, we know that the follow-up could be the Kodo. Most likely will be the Kodo, unless Tides pick up something better. Huh, he's going to wait on the charge and see what he can use it appropriately, what his opponent's going to respond.
Yeah, I think waiting here is better. There's just no reason. Like, if you attack, it kind of results in the same thing. Except you've just preemptively attacked. You give your opponent a little bit more information about what they should be doing.
All right, speaking of what they should be doing, Tides doesn't have the cleanest play. The Kodo does kill his own token off. And opens himself up to just killing off his Leok.
Yeah. I don't know if you have another play, though.
I think Haunted Creeper is too weak, especially if you put it onto the board with an Undead Ghoul. You're asking for your Haunted Creeper to get 0 value. I think it's a decision you kind of have to just live with, though. The alternative is also to not take damage on your Kodo, and then... Well, I guess he's just going to go for it.
Yeah, I think you have to Kodo here. You have to just get pressure on the board. Like, you're not going to win if by just playing a long game, especially with this kind of hand.
Yeah, I'm definitely inclined to agree. Sludge Belcher, again, a card that's really stable for Control Warrior to continue to annoy their opponents and stall out for as long as possible. Definitely an MVP sleeper card of this entire tournament.
That's a pretty big draw.
I don't see anything else, really. Savannah Highmane's really good.
Whoa.
But he's going to pass on it.
Okay, so he's going to use Kill Command instead.
Low Tev. That's also kind of appealing, but Kill Command, he kind of committed to that play earlier. And he can also play the Haunted Creeper while clearing the board.
So getting a little bit of pressure out. That's going to be such an important card.
The Savannah
gosh.
Highmane or the Low Tev?
Yeah, Savannah Highmane. Uh-oh.
Deathwing.
Are we going to see Deathwing this game?
That is an expensive hand. 3 legendaries and an epic.
Well paid.
Pay to win confirmed. All right, Sylvanas or Cairn. He chose to go with Sylvanas over the Cairn. And, you know, Sylvanas will trigger after that Death Rattle, the second Death Rattle.
Yeah, I think you just got to give him the token here.
Yeah, I think you're not really caring about taking that 1/1. In that respect, do you feel like Reyna should have went with Cairn, or do you think the Sylvanas was the fine play?
I think Sylvanas is probably still better. You do have to. I mean, you do force your opponent to have that range of answers. Wow, Sludge Belcher's not bad. I imagine this Faceless Manipulator is going to be coming down this turn. That's the perfect Faceless target, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing better might be your own Cairn, but like Savannah Highmane is like super Cairn in a way.
Yeah. What he's thinking about is if his opponent has a Starving Buzzard here, is the card draw going to snowball out of control? Because if your opponent, like say your opponent plays Starving Buzzard here and attacks with Savannah Highmane into your Faceless Savannah Highmane, he's going to draw 2 cards. And then say he draws Unleash the Hounds after that. And then he draws 2 more cards. And then suddenly they've picked up a lot of cards. Yeah, it's like it's one of these spots that can snowball out of control. So that's something he's definitely considering right now.
At the same time, though, if he doesn't have it, this is a way to kind of control back and put it back in your favor with the card quality he has in his hand. So he's going to go for it, and Tides is going to have to respond. Oh, my goodness!
Oh, geez, that is a huge draw right now. My gosh, that is easily the best draw in the deck at the moment.
Do you play the Hyena
my
as well to
gosh.
pick up the instant 4/3?
I think you got to play it.
Okay.
Because if nothing else, you just want more information too.
All right, so Tides will have the opportunity to trade with the Savannah Highmane and draw 2 cards because it does summon the 2 beasts. Tides is hesitating for a long time. You know, these things don't exactly take the shortest amount of time with the animations. He's going to forego it and go for a Highmane play, then load that so that way he can set up for a lethal play, potentially.
I don't understand this at all. This is the perfect turn.
I mean, it's tempting, but this is a play to win the game. Lotheb is really difficult to kind of deal with. How does Reynad actually defend this? He has to use his Sludge Belcher, but if he had removal spells only, then this was a move for Tides to just close it out.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. I mean, you can play a 4/3 and then pick up at least 3 more cards. Like, what are you waiting for in that spot? I don't understand. Like, there's no, like, now you're just going to draw a lot less cards. Your opponent can just suicide their Highmane into your 5/5, and then you can't activate your Highmane after that. I think he's getting a little bit fancy here, and it's not going to pay off for him.
Okay, well, let's see what he draws on the Starving Buzzard. Maybe Unleash can bail him out.
Oh!
He gets to Unleash the Hounds. Okay, so, you know, I think
gosh!
there's no time to be creative. The Unleash the Hounds is absolutely the best draws that he had. And Tides picks up a second Savannah Highmane in the process. Holy mackerel. And a Direwolf Alpha. Why not?
Oh my gosh.
Interestingly enough, this is going to open him up to the BGH to deal with the Savannah Highmane. But I think the job's been done.
This is a pretty big swing in the game.
Holy snap.
And that's a big old scavenging hyena on the other side of the board, plus a buzzard, plus a Savannah Highmane.
Ah, he's 1 mana off the Deathwing.
I think outside of that Unleashed draw that Tides is facing down, a really, really bad couple of turns.
Whoop, Shield Slam.
Oh,
shield,
it still
shield slam.
could not. Yeah.
He also has a BGH as well to kind of control things. You can aim it at the Hyena, or you can aim it at the Highmane. But either way, tough decisions, because then he kind of leaves the Buzzard, which allows his opponent to draw more.
Right.
And Reynad still has not even paired together a potential win condition.
This is tough.
Here.
Because if you're going to Deathwing, you want the Deathwing to not leave 2 tokens on the board, because then you're going to be vulnerable to things like Hunter's Mark. Last thing you want to happen is Hunter's Mark taking down a Deathwing.
Well, I think I think the BGH and the Shield Slam has to kind of come out to some extent. He has lethal on the board. You have to kind of be able to address it. The only problem is, you know, how to try to figure out the way to come back from this, because things like Karen might get stranded in his hand as well.
You really want to kill this Buzzard, but then he's thinking about how likely is it his opponent just has another Buzzard in his hand too. This is a really tough turn. BGH is coming out for sure. And then it's a matter of where the Shield Slam goes. So I think this is his best move, even though it gives his opponent 2 cards. Something that there is to think about is if one of the ways that Warrior can actually win this matchup is just by running your opponent out of cards.
Well, he did draw the Timberwolf and a kill command, so if I'm not mistaken, that should be the way to end the game. I think Tides might have enough damage here.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I'm counting 17.
Let's see. Let's see if he attacks into this. This is quite the puzzle.
Okay, so he can attack the Buzzard in. He can play Stone Tusk Spore and draw a card.
I mean, he can do this to...
There's a lot of different ways to do this.
Sure. Okay. Attack into it. Get that. Get the 8 damage. The kill command. Timberwolf.
Shift over one way. Yeah.
Sure.
This is 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yep. This is.
Yep.
This is 2. It's a little bit over. It's about 2 over. Yep.
Well, he's got him covered, and he's going to jump out to a 2-0 lead. You know, I thought that Timberwolf was enough to buff things across because the +2 damage. Reynad realizes that he's down for, and he's going to have to go to his last deck in order to climb back in the series. He's going to have to rely on the mirror matchup as his warrior has been struck down. And as glorious as his previous series was, Reynad's going to need a little bit of a bigger miracle to come back out of a 2-0 deficit.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a pretty big one to climb out of it. It just, you're down 2-0. Tides has been crushing you with his Hunter. You got to rely on, you have to rely on a little bit of luck. It's good play plus good deck building plus good luck that ends up winning tournaments at the end of the day. So, if it's not your day, it's not your day. But this is the place where you got to start. Your back's against the wall. 3 in a row. It's been done before. It's not impossible. So, let's see where they go from here.
You got to have the mix of everything in order to kind of put it together for a good run. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Reynad will fight for his tournament life versus Tides of Time. Welcome back, everybody, to WEC Hearthstone edition for North American Qualifiers. Tides of Time is currently up 2-0 over Reynad, where Tides is currently winning with his Hunter deck, and Reynad will have to play the Mirror in order to keep his tournament chances alive. Admirable. Overall, I feel like the series has been a little bit one-sided as Tides has been getting the good draws he needs. But overall, can you really fault any kind of play on Reynad? Kind of looking at his series so far, has he kind of made any kind of egregious errors, or do you feel like he's just kind of been a victim of circumstance?
I think I think the circumstance is a much more likely scenario. I think the only case where you can really debate order of operations is the Hunter versus Zoo game, where he chose to extend into the board instead of being a little bit more conservative. Two very different routes to take. One of them allows you the chance to recover, and the other one is a very all-in situation where you force your opponent to have a very narrow range of cards that can bring him back into the game. So 2 different schools of thought. I'm okay with both of them, though. And it's hard to call anything a mistake when you're kind of taking those different routes where, like, one way allows you a recovery, one way is an all-in and forces your opponent to have, again, a narrow range of cards. Because it's not just like Unleash will blow him out. It has to have Unleash plus Buzzard plus another card to stay in the game. So I like his play, but I disagree with it.
All right. Well, game number 3 is about to get underway. We'll find out if Reynad's able to win this Mirror, but he also has to take down 2 really intimidating decks, and the Druid and Rogue, which has kind of been claiming number 1 and 2 spots, no matter how you kind of look at it in terms of tournament play.
Ooh.
Interesting opening. Is this the Clash Challenge for next Rammus or something?
3 web spinners right off the bat. What if the web spinner just continue to draw web spinner every single... I wonder what the odds that are.
It's got to be low.
Just number of beasts versus...
It's got to be in like the 0.05% range. It might it's got to be because there's dozens of beasts in Hearthstone. It's got to be like 20 or so beasts, isn't there?
Rad spinners.
To draw all 3 to draw web spinners.
Ooh, Scavenging Hyena's a good draw. So web spinners get matched, and then he leads out with a 4/3.
Huh. And you know these opening turns are so important. So that way you're able to kind of set the tempo and be able to kind of address. In the 100 Mirrors for a long time, it was all about making sure you had that initial 1-drop. So that way you kind of force your opponent to respond. But that's where things like Haunted Creeper really pull some heavy weight.
Yep. This is actually pretty heads up, too. It prevents the Scavenging Hyena from being a big possibility here. Like, if he had played his own web spinner and saved his coin, his opponent could have a Scavenging Hyena here and really just break the game wide open. That's something he wanted to avoid.
These guys know each other's decks, so they're trying to just play around that possibility. My Exna! And Golden My Exna, too. Well, she's ready for action. A second web spinner. You know, this game has potential to be epic lulz.
This might be crazy.
Not bad. I mean, I just want all legendaries from this point on for every single web spinner. That's my hope and dream.
Wow. Do you take Unleash or do you take Savannah Highmane?
Both have merits.
I think that you already... I think since you have Lotheb in 6 that Unleash and Kill Command are your 2 choices. I think there's a little bit of merit to Kill Command here too, but I don't know how hard you're going to be making a push for lethal. I think at this point you're trying to fight for card advantage still.
I just realized that if Tides for some reason spins like another Kodo, my Exna is going to get owned so hard. God. My Ex... I want to just... at that point, you can't just concede if that's the case, right? You can't just be mad at that.
Just concedes.
All right.
Yes.
Well...
just... Why not, right? I mean, sometimes you got to... Look, playing Hearthstone isn't about winning. It's about sending a message. And sometimes that message is that you just have to concede. 8 points of damage, though. Scavenging Hyena, extremely powerful. It seems like a lot of people... It felt like a lot of people would actually cut this. And I was curious why, because these sorts of situations are like where it shines. Like, that's a big damage lead to be getting. And sure, Tides has a way to counter it, but it's... Like, the damage lead does make a difference in this game.
Oh, certainly, because then it forces you to play really uncomfortably because you might have to account for lethal and you might have to do something that's unoptimal. Wait! Oh my God! He got the beast!
Oh my gosh.
He has the beast.
That's the beast to get, is the beast. That's beastly.
There's nothing... You know what he's going to get off this second web spinner? He's going to get a Tundra Rhino. And that Tundra Rhino is going to give that beast charge.
This game is crazy. Wave Spinner is too cool. God, I love this card.
An amazing card.
Reynad's hand, by the way, has gotten a little bit not so good. He needs those spiders to actually be beasts right now. Haunted Creeper does not make beasts.
Sorry, not my ex, though. Lotheb is actually going to get him blown out because if the opponent plays Savannah Highmane, he's in big trouble.
Well, Lotheb also just gets directly traded by a 5/3, but I don't know if he has another reasonable option.
Unleash the Hounds is just way too weak. You don't actually do anything. So Lotheb
needs to draw. Yep, he needs to draw Starving Buzzard.
All right. Oh, Tides is on 5 mana. Excuse me. Reyna's the one who went first, so he can't just drop the Savannah Highmane. You know what he can drop? The second web spinner. I'm ready. My body is ready. Oh yes, baby. This is the kind of RNG that makes Hearthstone a little bit fun, man. I like it.
I like RNG. I don't understand why people hate it so much. I think it's just what makes the game exciting.
Well, they love it until they lose to it.
Well, people hate it, and I'm like, man, have you ever been to like a casino? It's like, they're always packed. Like, people love
14-year-olds generally.
That's true too. I just like random stuff. It's just cool. Like, I don't want the same game to happen over and over again. My Exna in Beast Hunter, what's happening?
You need to give it greetings right after you play my Exna, by the way, because then he counters with the Beast and he gives greetings. And obviously, this is completely unoptimal play, but imagine the ratings.
Oh my gosh.
At this point, the analysis is a little bit
suddenly
difficult to make because we don't know too much. One thing that is important is that my Exna does synergize with Houndmaster, and then it becomes Super Oasis Snapjaw.
Super Oasis Snapjaw.
Yep. It's Oasis Snapjaw went Super Saiyan and kills everything in its path. It's even got golden for the hair. Oh, but the Timberwolf actually does allow it to trade. Okay, let's see what it gets off of this web spinner. Another web spinner.
Web spinner.
The train continues. Speaking of which, the Direwolf Alpha has done so much work.
It has gotten a lot of value this game. It's allowed 2 trades to happen that normally wouldn't have ever happened.
Yeah. The web spinner replaces itself and keeps up to draw while being able to maintain board presence because of its affordability. It does open himself up if Reynad draws another, or draws his first buzzard, that is, and draws more cards. And it is the buzzard, just what the doctor ordered. He had tracking just in case.
Does he wait one more turn, though? I don't think he does. I don't think he can afford to.
I think he needs to pick up answers immediately. Another buzzard. And a web spinner. You know what? This is awesome. This is already my favorite game of the tournament.
Do you tracking first?
I don't know, man. This game, I mean, with the Beast and my Exna coming in, I don't even know what's optimal anymore.
No. Okay, so he picks up an extra card from Web Spinner, and that gives him more information for his tracking.
Ah.
Ooh, interesting cards. Owls actually seems pretty good right here, because your opponent, like you already have a Hunter's Mark. Flare isn't very exciting right now. You know your opponent's got at least 1 Web Spinner card in their hand, and then 2 other cards that they haven't played yet. So if you had traps, it's like they likely would have come down already anyway.
Sure.
I think Owl is easily the best choice. Another Web Spinner draw. What does he get?
Silverback Patriarch, welcome to Hearthstone. Oh my god.
This looks just like a really busted arena draft from Tides right now. That's what it looks like.
I mean, what did he have to choose between the Beast and 2 of the legendaries like Millhouse Manastorm and Lore Walker Cho? Pick the Beast.
I think the Beast is great, man. Have you ever slammed that guy in arena? 9-7? Are you kidding me?
I have no idea until they just BGH it and you give him a 3-3. Okay, well, now we have the ability to use the Starving Buzzard and the Hunter's Mark with the Hour and Beak Owl. So Reynad can get more cards, more synergy, take down his opponent, draw another Beast off this Web Spinner. And Tides, I would like to say that he has answers, but he also got some interesting questions.
Buzzards are really turning this game around. Yeah, I mean, this is why you took the Owl.
Draws a Haunted Creeper.
Get in there.
Do you want to keep drawing before you use your Hunter's Mark?
I don't think you do. I think you want to see what you... Because if you draw... like, what... Is there any 4-cost beasts that change what you're going to play?
Like Oasis Snapjaw or something, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, it's almost time to find out what's going to be the next draw of Web Spinner. He's going to take control of this board. He does make himself a little bit more open to an Unleash combo, but I think Reynad's doing what he can. Oh, he gets a River Crocolisk.
That's a dangerous place. You don't want to go down to that river at Crocolisk. It's a dangerous place.
All right, well, Reynad plays it and draws further and gets his Savannah Highmane.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big draw.
Okay. Second kill command. He didn't pick up his own Buzzard. And a little bit of a sigh of disappointment.
This has got to be some sort of Unleash turn. As much as you want to wait for Starving Buzzard, I don't know if you can afford to anymore.
He's too low of a life count, too. Kind of have to address it, so for sure. Unleash makes sense.
Now,
you also can attack, defend your Unleash.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. Like, how much merit is there to attacking the Haunted Creeper? So that way you can finish it off. But then, like, the Crocolisk is still there?
Guess you have to kill command that, then.
Ugh. That
That
feels
doesn't
really
feel
brutal.
great either.
You know, the Silverback Patriarch actually does a pretty good job of fending it off.
Here we go. We found the counter to the River Crocodilus.
Silverback Patriarch. Look at that monkey.
All right. Well, Reynad has a couple of really powerful options at his disposal, including Houndmaster / Savannah Highmanes and a second Unleash the Hounds.
I mean, his hand is so huge right now. I think this is just a Houndmaster turn, I think. As much as you want to play Savannah Highmane, there's just too much value, I think, in the Houndmaster.
Not to mention that it presents a really important wall that kind of disrupts your opponent. He already just used his weapon, so it's going to be really difficult to push through. Oh, but how about this? Now that he does have a taunter up, can you feel safe enough to drop the Highmane?
I think it's pretty reasonable. The other thing, too, is if he makes a Leok, he can play the Timberwolf to push through, or if he makes a Huffer, the Huffer can attack through. So it makes a lot of sense to be using Animal Companion here first.
All right, Reynad, what's it going to be?
This is tough. This is still really tough because you do want to squeeze in your hero power too. Your opponent's getting down to that dangerous life total.
That is true, but you kind of make it up if the Savannah Highmane lives.
Your opponent also just unleashed, so you know that they don't have Buzzard Unleashed. Like, they're really desperate for something to happen. So I think just pressuring the board right now is the best opportunity you have.
Okay. I mean, you can't really fault him for either. He's loading up the board in similar fashion with power, and he does get to use that hero power for immediate return and pressures opponent. He still represents lethal the following turn as well. Tides needs to kind of pull himself out here.
Oh, gosh. That is an ugly draw right now because you just use Unleash the Hounds.
Like Buzzard and Beast to draw a card.
Oh my god.
Absolutely not.
That is painful.
And Tides is going to try to stall for as long as he can, but I think he recognizes that this one is slipping away from him.
He just wants this. He wants the Buzzard to have taunt right now.
Whoa. Double Timberwolf. That's 6 extra damage with Unleash. 6 plus the 2. That's not enough to end it right now. But it's enough to clear the board and pave the way for Savannah Highmane and set up an epic finish. And Tides is left to his last card. I think he should play the Bees and then concede if he chooses to do so. For the fans, they want to hear what his battle cry is. No! No, Tides! Alright, well, we're going to game number 4. And Reynad staying alive in the series. What a
crazy game.
Ridiculous game. What a silly game, honestly.
I feel like Reynad's web spinners were a lot better than Tide's web spinners. What with Silverback Patriarch and the Beast versus actual relevant minions.
I have nothing really to say about that game, how it panned out with the RNG, other than that was really fun and I enjoyed casting it. If you're in Ty's position, though, it can be super frustrating. You got second web spinner into Silverback Patriarch and the Beast. Now, granted, one of them is a legendary card, but not exactly the most practical one, as he didn't find a way to drop it whatsoever before the game has ended. Now we go to the veto screen and kind of look what Tides has left. I don't imagine that he was going to use his Druid, so I feel like he's going to rely on his Miracle Rogue, and it's going to be very tough for Hunter, but Hunter still can pull out. In fact, Reynad, even in DreamHack in recent memory, has used his Hunter to beat a couple of those Miracle Rogue and squeeze him out of tough matchups. So the series is not over yet by any means. Yeah,
something to consider also is that I talk about this a lot when you're going into these scenarios where you've gone up 2 games, and now your opponent has a good matchup and a bad matchup versus your last 2 decks. You don't want to be going potentially into the last game with a disadvantage. I think it can kind of weigh on your mind, and that's a situation you want to avoid. So it's good to play Druid here and just trying to pick off a win with it, because even if he doesn't get a win, he might get more information about cards that are in Reynad's deck. So it makes a lot of sense to be queuing up Druid here. If you lose with it, it's not really any skin off your back. You still have Miracle Rogue as an anchor, and it's a good matchup going into it. Whereas the other way around, if he happens to lose the Miracle Rogue and then he's going into it with Druid, is that going to affect his mental state at all? So it's something he's going to have to consider. Certain players, no, it won't, and they'll just play Miracle Rogue here right out the gate. But I think at the very least, it's good to just get extra information about what's potentially in your opponent's deck.
It is the token Druid as well, which we kind of discussed yesterday. It does fare better against the Hunter because the pressure that you can put. Things like Power of the Wild can put things slightly out of range or in range to end the game. And I think the game is ready. So let's jump into game number 4. Actually, in just a second. My bad. I thought we were ready for it, so I made a mistake. Mistakes were made.
Mind games.
Mind games. I thought you guys thought that we were going to game, but we didn't. I have you right where you want to. Tempo Rodan.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the decision to unleash the hounds on the turn that Tides did, because it's a pretty crucial game. And what do you think that there's any chance that he can afford to pay life for one more turn, or do you think he needs to unleash the hounds and try to start stabilizing? Because there is something to consider for the fact that if he unleashes now and his opponent has a follow-up, how does Tides actually win the game? Like, does he need to wait and hope that he can get a better circumstance?
Not really sure. Not really sure. I think the way to kind of approach it as well is, like I think you have to kind of just take the momentum from the hunter underneath them and be able to kind of take the initiative. If you're playing the druid, that is. The game is ready, by the way, so let's jump to it and quit the speculation and go straight into the action. It will be the Miracle Rogue for Tides. It's the best percentage matchup. And Reynad will have to get out of the woods with this hunter deck and carry him all the way home.
Oh, he's going to mulligan's going to pan out. Backstab, I think, is really crucial in this matchup, as well as SI7 Agent. Those cards are probably more important than Gadgets and Auctioneers, honestly.
Reynad thinking about tossing back everything as well. He ends up going for it. Backstab and SI7 when you're not on the coin. Whoa! 2 web spinners as well. By the way, I did get a message from one of my friends, Ayoga from Team Liquid, who did say that web spinner chance to draw web spinner is about 3%. But to happen twice in a row is basically exponential of that percentage as well. So it can happen. It's not out of the possibility.
All right, so we've seen a Novice Engineer now, which is something that you don't typically see. And I guess the only real debate this game is whether or not you play Novice Engineer or whether or not you use Dagger.
Emperor Cobra.
Is that just actually... Oh, that's what he drew from the... I was like, wait a minute, is that just actually in the deck?
No, I don't think it's exactly what he would. I mean...
We've seen Gara play it.
Yeah, he experimented with it in his Druid deck.
This card's cool. God, I love Web Spinner. I'm going to have to play some Web Spinner games today.
It certainly is really fun. How confident do you feel like being able to play in something like Houndmaster as well in the following turns? You really hope he doesn't have Phantom Knives.
Look at this. He's actually just playing stuff down to start pressuring his opponent. He wants to get Houndmaster active next turn.
Yep. Well, Tides is going to play his Novice Engineer and just kind of play it pretty slowly.
Yeah, he should be attacking the board first. He doesn't want to give his opponent any more information than he wants to.
Sure, the Web Spinner might change his play.
Right. He picks up an Auctioneer too. There's also a Lotheb in Reynad's hand. This game could get crazy. What do you think of just is there any merit to using Backstab SI that turn, or do you just need to hold it?
On Web Spinners, and I mean, only if you want to pressure the hunter back and put the SI7 agent. I don't think the 1 damage represents too much. Now I think there's definitely legitimacy to this.
It's sort of a weird spot because when your opponent plays the Stone Tuskboar and just attacks you, it's such a big telegraph that they have, I think, Houndmaster in their hand. Like they want to get it active, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at this! He's actually going to Shadow Step. I'm surprised by that.
Well, he wants to use a Shadow Step to reduce the damage.
Wow,
I mean, he has Lotheb, he has Gadget Sand.
He's just
Maybe
using
he
Shadow
has
Step
ability
to 2
to
damage
pass.
spell.
Yeah. Tundra Rhino for Reynad.
Oh, geez. He's on 4 mana, though. This is a rough turn.
It is pretty awkward, but he can drop something like an Emperor Cobra just to kind of stall for time. Unleash the Hounds isn't exactly the most valuable card just because it's very rare for Miracle Rogue to build the board, but there are instances of it. Houndmaster, of course, great, but if you get sapped, your minion, you essentially lose the battle cry, and you're just putting a 4/3 minion on the board that's easily destroyed by something like Blade Flurry or Deadly Poison charge straight up.
I want to say you take the Houndmaster, but it's so poor here. Your hand's already heavy. I don't know if
rare that you're going to be able to follow up with the Houndmaster.
I don't even know if you need to try to get value out of it. Emperor Cobra is actually pretty good here, though.
Well, it's going to draw some heat. Preparation off the top for Tides.
This has got to be a Guided Sand Auctioneer turn. I think you just draw your couple of cards, keep pressure on the board, and start pressuring your opponent. Then you have Loatheb to follow up. You're going to see at least 2 extra cards.
You like expending the sap here, when it can be one of your tickets to just win the game if your opponent drops a heavy minion?
I like it simply just because he wants... Like, I feel like you just want to dig into your deck at this point. You're not fighting so much of like a combo matchup here as you are just kind of fighting just for a little bit of board presence so you can keep pressuring your opponent. That's really all you have to do. If you keep their board disrupted, it's hard for them to do anything. And I don't think you want to sacrifice your 3/3. I'd much rather have the 3 damage and have his Emperor Cobra still be in his hand. Okay, so when he does it this way, he wants his opponent to invest in a big minion. But gosh, I don't like it.
I think it's personally fine. I like the ability, because plus you might pick up an extra mana for something like Conceal. And Loatheb still represents the 5/5, so you're able to kind of sneak in some damage and improve board presence anyways. I can live with it. Reynad picks up an Animal Companion, which he can't drop whatsoever, so he's going to respond with his own Loatheb, which is going to make it very difficult for the Gadget Stand to go off.
Yeah, that's bad news. Ooh, he's going for the dome.
All right, Tides.
Wow.
That might bite him in the butt, depending on how these panned out.
He does have to figure out a way to put together enough damage, too.
That is true, and he already used a Shadow Step. Okay, let's see what Reynad gets out of this Animal Companion. He gets a Leok. Huh.
If he double rolls Leoks.
Oh, man.
Now that he's got the Leok, though, there is some merit to using Unleash the Hounds instead.
Right, you can clear the board this way.
Yep.
Unleash the Hounds ideally can synergize with something like Scavenging Hyena, but I also think it's a little bit optimistic.
I probably would still hang on to it at this point. Like, I just feel like a second Animal Companion's good.
Well, hopefully it's not Leok. Alright, well, it is a Misha. Hopefully he was trying to roll for, like, the Huffer so that way he can get for the easy trade and clear the board. Ran a little bit upset about that one.
Huffer would have been a big roll right there.
Well, considering what's in the hand of Tides of Time, because he does have Eviscerate.
Geez. That's a pretty good one.
Alright, Leroy off the top with his preparation draw. That's really important for the upcoming turns.
Do you eviscerate? I don't think you sap the Loatheb. I think you're supposed to eviscerate the Loatheb and then sap over on the Misha, unless he wants to use his Blade Flurry this turn. Which I'm guessing if he's playing it this way, he's using Blade Flurry. I don't know, maybe you do just sap Loatheb. Maybe your board presence is big enough that you just don't care about it. He's
Blade
more
Flurry. Conceal right off
my life.
Alright. Oh, well, Reynad just drew the Buzzard. Buzzard Unleash with the Hyena, and that's enough for the full combo. See what he picks up. Hunter's Mark would be immaculate.
Oh gosh, this draw's big. That was he needed a really important card there. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Do you gamble?
What can you do?
Well, he can silence the Auctioneer, decides he can draw something, and he gets a tracking anyways. Reynad drew through his deck, but he didn't really draw the answers he needs. Now, interestingly enough, the Tundra Rhino might... Oh man, if the spiders that came from the Haunted Creeper, that could have done some crazy work. But you can't actually do that combo. Maybe Reynad can kind of pair something together with something like Tundra Rhino, but for now, he's kind of at the mercy of his opponent. Whoa, Reynad flirting with the idea of conceding. Oh man, that is not a good mindset to be in.
Yeah, that's not the mindset you ever want to be in. I mean, your opponent's drawn a lot of cards, and you've gotten to this position, but you know that's part of the risk that's associated with not banning Rogue out from your opponent.
Azure Drake draws the Shiv, so the draws continue. Very important for Tides to be able to continue this momentum. And he also has a Conceal. This could be the end of Reynad's tournament. I think that conceal might be it.
I don't know if there's anything that gets him out of this one. This is a brutal spot to be in.
Let's see, Reynad has 4. He needs to draw 16 damage of some kind.
He's
Well,
way
let's
short.
see what he gets with tracking. Oof.
6. Nope, he's way short.
He was pretty far away from that Timberwolf that he would have liked to have, or something.
You know, if this was his entire hand, would he have it? Let's count that. Like if those
double kill command and
yeah,
Timberwolf.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. No, he'd still be off. And I mean, he has no way to reach now, but he's lost both of his kill commands at this point.
I don't think there's any way out. There's no way to taunt. There's no way to kind of utilize this Tundra Rhino. There's no way to buff the Hyena. So I think this is the end of the road for Reynad, and Ties will move on and await somebody for the top 4 place.
Yeah, no further way to draw cards. It's done at this point.
Now, granted,
Tides, I mean, I guess he could there could be an earthquake where he lives. That could stop the game, right?
But Tides also lives half an hour from Reynad, so if there's an earthquake on his side, Reynad's going to experience that as well.
Ooh.
Wait, hold on.
No, this is still way short.
Still a lot of damage, and at least he made it competitive as much as he could, putting him down to 5 health. And he had that kill command and extra mana. Unfortunately for Reynad, Tides will be moving on. I guess you could live in spirit through the Tempo Storm banner, but Tides will end up advancing. And, the Lotheb doing work. And Reynad once again forfeiting before letting his opponent have the satisfaction.
Something that's seems to be in the repertoire for some players is the concede micro. I actually have some pretty solid concede micro. If anyone's ever watched, I just know exactly where it's at all the time. But yeah, just kind of a brutal game. It's like that's the nature of that Hunter versus Rogue matchup, though, is that the Hunter relies so much on synergy that when it gets picked apart by these efficient answers, it becomes so difficult to recover. When your opponent has backstab and SI7 agent, it's such a big swing in the game, and it's so early on. Like, you don't expect swing turns to be happening that early, and that's really where Miracle Rogue's power is kind of stemming from, is that one significant turn.
Certainly agree. So Reynad, he played one of the most fun series in the entire tournament. Once again, it seems to be his MO that he has one of the most epic series wherever he goes. But he does end up dropping in the second round in the top 6 of WEC NA. Still, I feel the Killers kind of have to be proud of where he is, but he isn't the first one to be eliminated today, along with Amaz and Brad. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Strife Crow versus Reels and find out which one of these guys is going to send home and who advances to go on and play Tides of Time. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, to the WC North American Qualifiers. Coming up next, we have Strifeco versus Reels, and that'll be determining who will be the one playing tides for top 4 and moving on to day number 3. If you're just tuning in, you missed Reynad being eliminated from the tournament by his teammate, but not after having a really fun series with Amaz, probably the most memorable from this tournament for certain. Now, let's talk a little bit about the implications of what's going on if we take a look at the bracket, as we do have 3 players eliminated. 4th person will be joining. Rio's representing Managrind, Strifecrow representing Cloud9. And, I think these guys, Ty, Strifecrow, and Reels, who are right now left for day number 2, again, those are the guys that you kind of expect to be at the top of the ladders, the ones doing really well in all kinds of tournaments. They have great streams, and they're also known as some of the most educational / high-level players whenever you tune in for some of their actions. So not surprising in the slightest, but a little bit tragic that it has to be decided like this.
Yeah, the veterans really showing their their stuff in this kind of tournament. They put up big numbers consistently, and it's no surprise. It's all these players play really well. They understand their matchups, and it's sort of unique because I think all 3 of them have a very distinctly different style. Strifecrow's fighting really hard for the board, sacrificing in order to make up for that by having a big board presence. Reels is a really big proponent of understanding his matchups and knowing when to make pushes for lethal in games. And Tides is a very strong deck innovator who's able to make small changes to deck that end up being big impacts in the games. So it's no surprise again to see these players winning. And unfortunately, like you said, one of these players is able to advance, and the other 2 got to go home. So it's always sad for me to see, but boy, do I like watching the matches.
It's going to be a fun time. We can take a look at the deck preparations in just a sec, but before we do that, we want to take an opportunity to recognize the sponsors of the event once more if you're just tuning in. It's been sponsored by 2p.com. Shout out to Cindy and Milk, who's been putting out a good production. And make sure to thank all of them as well as the sponsors for the event. And this is all for the $62,000 tournament that's be happening in the first beginning of a week of September, where it's going to be, I believe, in Hangzhou, China, and it's an offline event. We're still trying to figure out if there's going to be an English stream for that event, by the way. There's no actual details of whether or not it's going to happen, but we're trying to make it happen all at the same time. So thank you for understanding for anybody who's just kind of curious about the future and watching these players continue to advance. Also, if you missed the previous week, we had RDU and Darkwonix as the 2 European representatives who advanced for that region. And we're going to find out who is going to be the top 2 players from North America, 2 out of the Alchemixed, Firebat / one of these 3 players that advanced from today.
Yeah, looking at last week, sort of something that came to my mind that was brought to the forefront of my mind by Reddit. RDU actually made a post on there where he was talking about how reluctant how sad he is that he can't play in any of these BlizzCon tournaments that feed into the final event because he's from Romania. And that was something that I thought was like really, really unfortunate because he's just been killing tournaments all over the globe and winning nonstop. But just something about the legal issues, he can't compete. And it just as soon as you said that he had qualified for this event, I was like, man, that's just one more event that he's qualified for that he's crushed coming up to this point, and he's not even eligible to be able to play BlizzCon. Like, when you're in that position and you've been winning that much, do you consider moving simply for a Hearthstone career?
I mean, he's 17. He hasn't finished high school. I highly recommend against it, but it might be tempting when you're that young and that good at the game. And with this kind of results, there's another tournament going on as well, the VGVN tournament, the qualifier that went on today. And there's a 250-man open bracket, which was pretty much packed. And RDU almost went all the way, too. He went to the very last round where he lost to 6-0, where 6-0 qualified over him. But once again, going super far, despite a lot of other people in that entire bracket, some big names, they end up falling way earlier than RDU. So once again, showing a lot of consistency where he won 5 or 6 series before finally losing. So the kid's really talented. I think he's going to go far. I think he's going to perform excellently at WEC in China, especially since he's been to China. It's not as scary of a place before. When you're 17 and you're traveling internationally to a country that doesn't speak your language and you look very different from the average citizen, and the fact that you're playing a video game, you're not really sure people are going to be taking advantage of you because of the language barrier. I think he's kind of overcome a little bit of the initial fear of going and traveling to China alone. But I think this time around he'll be really good. So best of luck to RDU as well as Darkwonix too.
Yeah, best luck to them. Anyways, we're ready to get back into the screens now. Take a look at what these players vetoed and how they intend to approach this match. And Reels once again choosing to not veto Miracle Rogue, and I'm still surprised by it. And Strife Crow, no surprise, vetoing Miracle Rogue. I think this is the right play. But this, again, we saw this last match. It was telltale of the fact that Reels was very reliant on handlock. He actually 3-0'd with it. It's very strong versus Miracle now when you add Sludge Belcher into the mix. I'm curious if he thinks that taunts are just so powerful now that you're able to shut down Miracle Rogue. This is the third time he hasn't vetoed Miracle. Am I wrong?
I believe so. I'm trying to look at his the hunter, and how it matches up with the rest of his decks, and it makes a little bit more sense how much it might give him some grief with handlock and the druid. It seems like he just doesn't really respect Miracle that much, and he has answers to it. Maybe he feels really confident in having two answers, like the paladin maybe can address it, maybe the warlock can, the handlock. I don't know. Reels is playing according to his style and to his strengths, and more power to him.
You do make a good point with Hunter, because Hunter is strong versus Druid and versus Warlock. And something he may be fearing here is that deck is stronger versus those two than Miracle potentially is versus the rest of his lineup.
Basically, the lesser of two evils in a way.
Yeah.
I can definitely get behind that. And I think the game is almost ready for Strifecrow versus Reels. Before I do that, let's take a quick second to look at the predictions of what these guys are going to do. Even before that, do you feel like one guy is favored? Do you feel like it's just going to come down to draws and who's able to get a little bit better?
But this is one of those lineups where I feel like how players end up colliding their decks makes a big difference. So I expect both of these players to be taking very few risks in their opening. I would assume Reels would start with Druid, and honestly, I would assume that Strifecrow would start with Druid. I think they want to avoid a Paladin mirror, and I think that Reels is really trying to avoid having handlock go versus a Paladin. So I'd be surprised if he didn't save that to try to run it up against Miracle Rogue.
Cool. Well, we're ready to go. And Strifecrow versus Reels, they've got all their streams synced up. Delays are all set. And it will be a Druid versus Paladin. Paladin for Reels, Druid for Strifecrow. Strifecrow known as one of the biggest innovators for Druid, dating all the way back to the beta, where he was the one putting interesting tech choices like Wild Pyromancer and all these weird stuff. Like, he was playing Cenarius before other people were playing Cenarius, and they were like, well, why even that card? Isn't it expensive and kind of clucky? And then Strifecrow kind of just showed us the demonstration of why it's so powerful. So, he's very comfortable with this class. At the same time, Rios has shown great proficiency with Paladin, despite not having a big team base, because it seems like Cloud9 likes Paladin, but I'm not really sure about Mana Grind as a whole.
Yeah, Paladin makes a lot of sense here as the lead, too, because I think it's the weakest deck of his three, and it's also pretty neutral versus his opponent's lineup. I think that Strifecrow really wants to... Oh my gosh.
What a hand.
I was about to talk about how good 2 innervates is, except for when you have a 1-drop and a 2-drop as your draws. But when you pick up Violet Teacher right off the bat, is this a turn 1 Violet Teacher innervate Power of the Wild? Or is this a turn 2 Violet Teacher? And then I guess it's better on turn 2 because you get your Argent Squire under it as well.
That was the most excited I've ever seen Strifecrow. Ever. I've seen Strifecrow win tournaments. I've seen Strifecrow hang out at parties. I've seen him almost on top of the world, and nothing trumps that Violet Teacher draw. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I think, yeah, you do go for a big play now. Oh, man.
Oh my gosh.
You even have removal the following turn.
Do you coin here, or do you save the coin? No, you just coin. Oh my
All in, baby.
Look at Reels, and I don't blame him. My goodness, this is a
oh man,
silly start.
How do you even do with this?
I don't know. This might be the best start in the game. This might, I guess if that swipe was an Argent Squire, it would have been a little bit better. But I think that this is the best possible start that you can get. Wow, look at it. He drew a Consecrate though. Oh my gosh.
Wait, hold on. Strifecrow, wow, okay, he gets that Argent Squire, so he has something to do this turn. But all of a sudden, because of that Consecration draw, all of a sudden, Strifecrow won't be able to do as much damage as he thought, because this Consecration will clean up a lot. That is an excellent top deck.
Oh, jeez. That's a lot of damage. Strifecrow really aware of how much he should be hedging his bets here, too.
How much
this is gonna hurt though.
Divine Shield.
This is gonna hurt.
Well, Strife goes down to 1 card. I mean, Hurt doesn't even describe the painful situation of climbing back from this card deficit if you're not able to kind of close it out.
It's a lot of damage on the reels, but it's like, again, as you were saying, he still has a 1-3 though. Like the 1-3 Violet Teacher is pretty close to just as threatening.
Sure.
Every single spell ends up mattering. Yeah. So Reel's not quite out of the water yet. That certainly helps him. I think without that Consecrate, there was no way he was going to climb back into this game.
All right. Well, Reels has kind of at least weathered the most important part of the storm, and he does have an Acolyte that can draw some big cards.
Yep. Lay on Hand's going to be pretty important in this matchup too. If he gets to that point safely.
Ooh.
Oh gosh, this has got to go into taunt mode, right?
It feels like that's the most effective use for it.
It's shutting off the Acolyte of Pain from drawing too many cards. It's shutting off the Haunted Creeper and the Acolyte of Pain from picking apart your board.
It makes you resilient to True Silver Champion as well.
Yeah.
Like he would have to go through the first one and then at least dedicate almost everything he has.
There's also some consideration, I think, though, to popping the Haunted Creeper and then swiping afterwards.
That's true, and you keep your Druid Claw versatile to kind of respond to whatever your opponent drops. But
I think he interprets
the mana curve. You kind of want to respect that a little bit more.
That also. Whoa! Wow.
Okay, charge mode. I mean, in the end, the True Silver Champion would be going down
What's
on
he
the
playing
Druid
around
Claw.
here when he does that? I wonder.
Sludge Belcher off the top. That's really nice, and the Humiliate to pair with it.
Wow.
Reel's kind of stabilizing here.
Reels has really climbed back into this game. I think actually Reels just has strictly an advantage now.
Okay, we'll hang on. See if Strifeko kind of addressed us with Swipe. Can kill off Sludge Belcher and then left with 2 tokens. Yeah, he can go for a full board clear.
A lot to invest.
Well, it's not like this 1-3 Druid Claw is going to be doing much else anyways.
Yep.
I guess it's just stuck on cleanup duty.
Yeah, Reels is still fighting a little bit from behind, but he's going to find himself in a pretty nice spot, I think. His opponent just doesn't have a lot of power on the board, and he's going to start scaling into this later game.
Yeah, Strifeko needs to pick up an Ancient of Lore, maybe a Power of the Wild or something to at least improve the position of it.
Oh, that's a really bad draw right now.
Interesting. Holy Light might be a key card to kind of survive and put himself out of range, but still.
I think he wants to save that Holy Light, but he's really considering how much it matters versus Savage Roar. Yep.
Okay.
He lives through Savage Roar that way for sure.
See what Strifeko top decks? Another Harvest Golem.
More of these troublesome minions that you don't want to deal with.
How much do you trade in to protect your Violet Teacher?
I don't think you trade anymore. You're out of spells. I think you just keep attacking. But Strifeko plays very differently.
Okay.
There's one thing that's certain. It's how much he actually keeps the board clean from his opponent. He values having all of the decision-making process extremely high.
All right, Reels, what's it going to be? He's still kind of struggling under pressure. He's got a lot of stuff that's reactive. Wild Pyromancer.
That's a really good draw right now.
Yeah, I'll have to deal with a lot of these tokens. True Silver Champion. Tyrion.
Not a very good one at the end.
Oh, Ancient of Lore off the top for Strifeko.
That is really important at the moment. If there was one thing that Strifeko could have done to... I'm trying to think of all the draws in this deck that could exist, and this has to be the best one. I don't think there's any question about it.
Is he hesitating because he doesn't want to extend into equality?
That's certainly what he's considering.
And that's not what he wants to do, because as much as it is, equality would pick up big value, and he would not be able to kind of fight back as easily. He'd be left with a lot of tokens, but then there's even ways around it with you using a Pyromancer after the equality, and then using it as cleanup twice over.
Yeah, I think you got to go for the cards. I think.
I think it's almost too good to pass up.
Sort of the thing that I still thought was important was how highly he valued his 1/2 Violet Teacher. towards the end because it lost him 4 points of damage, kind of going into that turn. Like that was something that was so important, I think, and pivotal because you're trying to make the push towards the end, so you have to fight off like all of your opponent's sort of pressure throughout the game, and it's like he hasn't gotten any extra value out of this pilot feature. Still kind of curious about that, but now both of these players have fantastic hands. Oh my gosh! Is this lethal?
Yeah, he's got he's got 7, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11 plus 5. That's 16. No,
plus 4. Yeah, he's a little bit short, but he's definitely got a crushing board position. Reels needs to find an equality, but even equality is like not that good. It's still going to leave 3 minions on your opponent's side of the board.
Do you put the keeper? I think you save the keeper for another taunt as a way to finish the game. I don't know.
This is really close. I mean, this is a big spot you can make a really easy push for the game.
Oof. Well, he is reaching over for the keeper, which would be good news for that Tyrion. But still, there's a lot of minions on the board. You get the buff from the Power of the Wild at least on the keeper. My gosh.
Yep. I agree. To the dome.
Do you hedge your bets whatsoever?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you just go for it. This is so much damage. Like, how does your opponent recover from this much damage? This is the thing. This is something else that he does. Is he finds the right turn to swap from keeping control of his opponent's board and then going for the throat right at the end. So this is something that's also very unique to StrifeCro, is switching gears at the right time to put maximum pressure on your opponent.
Well, Rio draws the Harvest Golem.
Yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate. He hasn't found equality. Do the top half of his deck. Just rough beats.
There's no way he can survive. You know, Tyrion is his most intimidating taunt. He does have Defender of Argus as well to put up 2 targets, but I don't think that's enough. I think Rio's just calculating, is there any way you're possibly living, even if he gains 2 health from like a true silver champion? Perhaps. If he sets up double taunts. Maybe he still can.
This is the most he can possibly taunt.
But we know that he's holding Swipe, which is his ticket to end the game. I think Rio's just going to not even want to see it. He knows his opponent has way too many outs. Well, at least he gets the end.
After that start, you had a chance to recover with Consecration, but I mean, that start is just so powerful. And then StrifeCro was able to... I mean, this is part of the strength of Druid, too, is that it plays so well off the top of its deck because all of its deck is just high density of valuable minions. So once you get past the opening stages, if you're ahead, you just get to basically play whatever card you drew, and it ends up being good at pretty much every step of the way. And then if you happen to draw Ancient of Lore, like we saw him do, it just completely busts the game wide open. So I don't really think that Reels could have done anything differently to try to stay into this game. And StrifeCro just... I mean, what is there to say? It's an explosive start, and you put maximum pressure on.
It is, but it isn't. You know, at the same time, you might get those Argent Squires that don't actually do much late game. But in that scenario, when you have that much of a quick start, and you put on pressure, I completely agree with you. Druid is just so powerful in that position. The Innervates allow you to just break the rules. He had double Innervate and the coin and Power of the Wild. I mean, StrifeCro was giddy, and for good reason. He's up 1-0, and Reels is going to have to fight with another deck. Now, he has Druid and Handlock left. Any recommendations quickly before we go into game number 2?
I mean, I would still go with Druid. You want Handlock to match up against the Miracle Rogue if you can, but it's a long road to get there. But that's the match I'm aiming for.
All right. Well, I think the mulligans are almost ready, but I think you're right. I think the Handlock. I don't know. Like I always kind of mix between Handlock and how it kind of faces off against Token Druid. The fact that you have a lot of AoE clears is nice, but a lot of times it feels like you're at the mercy of some of the draws too. Like if you don't have taunters with the big things, if they have Keeper to Grow for Twilight Drakes, some of them still do run BGH, but they have cut that card to try to put a little bit more efficient minions that synergize well with Haunted Creepers and whatnot. And maybe he has Black Knight as well, so it's like these answers could just completely blow you away.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It's just I think at the end of the day, what's so important is just making sure that Handlock lines up against Miracle Rogue. I don't want to risk it at this point. He's going to think differently. But I'm pretty surprised he actually chooses this. I wonder why he doesn't go with Druid. Maybe his Druid is weak to Token Druid, and that's why he's not doing it. A very interesting choice, though, and I certainly would agree with mulliganing all these cards. I think you're searching for basically your big 4-drops and then Hellfire.
Sure. I mean, at the same time, Reels is very proficient with both of these type of decks. His handlock deck was the one that was carrying a lot of weight at DreamHack Summer, where he placed top 4. People forget about Reels' really good run, but it got stopped short off of Thought Steals with Harrison Jones and
oh gosh,
crazy, ridiculous plays against his Assassin's Blade.
That game was just insanity. I remember that one as well. Thought Steal. Amaz played more Mountain Giants than Reels did that match. And Reels was the one who had Mountain Giant in his deck.
Poor guy, poor guy. All right, well, Strife Crow, he does have an Innervate to start things off, and an Ancient of Lore. Now, there's an interesting question that you always kind of bring up. The use of Power of a Wild as just a straight-up minion in some matchups. And Strife Crow this time puts it down.
If there's one person I would expect to use it as a 3-2, it's Strife Crow. If it's someone else we saw that not use it as a 3-2. Because Strife Crow always fights for the board. This isn't even surprising to see him do it. And this is something that's really interesting to note too, is how many different styles there are in this game, and how each one of them can be successful in a different right. It's all about how they approach the game. It's like the path to victory. There's a lot of different paths, and I think that Strife Crow just tends to always favor the aggressive ones.
Well, why not for good reason? One of the most successful players in Hearthstone. For sure. Strife Crow picks up Savage Roar, which could be a way to end the game early, sometimes against Handlock. Turn 5 seems to be very clearly cut for Ancient of Lore.
Yeah, I agree. I imagine you're just going to play Harvest Golem here.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you need do you feel like you need to preemptively deal with the Watcher, ever, as a Druid?
Sometimes, yeah, but I think when you have 2 Harvest Golems, it's not that important. I think it's much better to just apply pressure, especially when you have such a strong follow-up.
All right, here we go. Racking in the damage. Handlock's been tapping, and he's playing his Mountain Giant most likely the next turn. Actually, oh, never mind. I thought he drew something else. He got a second Molten Giant, which also could be still very useful.
Yeah. This is kind of tough now too. You really have to consider how much presence that Mountain Giant holds, and is it worth trading right now?
Yeah, I think you can utilize your removal spells to kind of push out the Mountain Giant. That way, it doesn't become stronger or even at worse. Hit back and be able to get taunted up with something like a Faceless or something in following turns, and then all of a sudden it becomes like an incredible wall to go push through.
It's a play that you see a lot from Handlock decks, is they follow up Mountain Giant with Faceless Manipulator, and suddenly you're facing down 16-16, and that's one that's really hard to overcome. Oh, I wonder if he's going to Savage Roar here, actually.
You Savage Roar, but then you put your opponent at 12 with the Harvest Golem? Actually, maybe even 10.
I think, well, if he Savage Roars, I think there's a lot of merit to killing the Ancient Watcher. Okay, so he's not going to Savage Roar. I would have been very surprised if he did, but he was certainly thinking about it.
Flirting with the idea, but
Yep.
I think it's just too good as a way to kind of finish the game if you have an opportunity.
Right. You want to use that to push through taunts. Now, here's another question, too, though, is how aggressively he's going to choose to use this Innervate on the next turn. Like, say he draws a card that's not particularly good. Is he still going to Innervate out this Ancient Allure?
I think so. I don't think there's like merit to keeping the Innervate too long. The only exception would be if you want to keep it for like a combo if you have it. So I mean, the Ancient Allure is alright. I think you're kind of okay with him playing like Siphon Soul on the following turn.
Yep. Reels' play, by the way, here, I mean, what does he do? Does he just drop a Defender of Argus and pass? This seems like such a less than exciting spot. He just has nothing to do.
Does he use the coin so that he can draw an extra card?
I don't think so. Oh, he's looking at Hellfire. Yeah, I think he feels kind of nervous about this. He's really afraid of Black Knight, it feels like.
Well, I think he might do that exchange, see if he can draw something better. Oh. It would put him down to 15. Second Soulfire.
Coin, Defender of Argus. So he does effectively use coin to draw an extra card. And now these Molten Giants are getting really close to being active.
Violet Teacher off the top.
You have to be thinking about Shadow Flame at this point, right?
Yeah. But I think it effectively does the same thing either way. You're putting in a 5 health creature and kind of just waiting for your opponent to do something. I think you do Suicide the Damage Golem to kind of make sure he doesn't get Mortal Coiled.
Right.
And then just kind of take it from there. In which case, I think the Ancient of Lore is better just because you can draw cards and see what you can do in response. Maybe you do pick up something like Black Knight if Strifeco has it.
Oh, man, this is a tough spot. None of his plays feel very good at all.
At the same time, he's also not really taking some damage, too. Sometimes as Druid, you've taken a little bit of damage early on from Handlock. So at the same time, you feel like there's even... Like, they have such a big hand, and you get closer to 10 mana. There is this weird scenario where you might get bursted down. So Strifeco still has this really big early lead in terms of the health life, so that way he's not feeling too much pressure to, like, make something happen at the moment.
Yep. He was considering using 2 damage on the Ancient Watcher there, and just finishing it off.
Okay.
Oh,
he is
look
using
at
that
this.
damage. Huh. All right.
Not quite what I expected, but a pretty strong board position to be in.
Well, assuming his
also
opponent doesn't have a way to
disadvantage.
deal with it immediately.
Yep. I think this is the best position he can put himself in, though. Oh my gosh.
Whoa, the Hellfire allows him to play a giant.
So he trades in the Defender of Argus to the 3/5 Hellfires, and then Giants, and then oh my gosh.
Do you Soulfire afterwards to kill off the
Soulfire the
attack
2/1.
minion?
Last week we saw a play where Savitz could have Soulfired a 1/1 and ended up losing to the 1/1 instead.
That is true.
Yeah, because his opponent had Power Overwhelmings in their hand.
Oh, we forgot the possibility of life tapping as well, so he can play double giant.
Oh jeez.
Whoa. Now
I don't think
that is a big
Soulfire-
play.
Oh my gosh. I don't think he's Soulfire, but
I wouldn't blame him if he did.
You do lose to swipe if you don't Soulfire, though, so he is going to Soulfire. Yeah, I actually do Soulfire, because you lose to swipe and Savage Roar. And that's one of the only ways you lose in this
Whoa,
spot.
guess
And
what?
it's-
Guess
oh my gosh.
what?
If he didn't Soulfire, he would have lost the game.
That is a
cannot
big
believe
time
it.
read. Big time read from Reels.
That is master level play.
Okay, well, Strifecrow, he's facing down 16 damage. If the opponent has any way to put 12 together, he could be in trouble. Not to mention the fact that these giants not only can do damage, but they could be taunted up the following turn. Strifecrow might have just found himself in a swing that he can't get himself out, despite the fact that he's at 28 health, and for a long time he was controlling the board. This is what Handlock does. Every single time.
Double Molten Giant is just... I think it's just too big of a turn. Like, he's facing down... He's facing down potential lethal next turn, by the way. If his opponent had something like Leroy Power Overwhelming Soulfire. But obviously he has no way to play around that, so he's got to think about how he can work on ending this game.
Maybe his idea is also that if he gets Force of Nature, he can combo into it.
Yep. Oh my
Or
gosh.
try to innovate into it.
Now, if you're Reels here, you have 2 different routes. Well, you have a bunch of different routes, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. How much value is there to using Siphon Soul and risking playing against the combo?
It's the same as taunting up and, trading and then healing up a little bit as well. I think you don't really lose too much if you just trade a little bit, heal back up. You can use it versatilely, like on your minion or on yourself.
Yep.
And then putting out really big walls, unless you want to play around Black Knight and you use Spell Tree to get it out of the way. Either way, it's
no
still
reason to
very
life tap.
intimidating.
Yeah, no reason to life tap here either. And he's got lethal next
Absolutely
turn. His
not.
opponent's got to take care of this board position. Which he can. but not to the full extent.
Do you wrath to draw?
I don't think you can afford to. Maybe that's the only thing he can do, though.
Maybe that's his only way to kind of find an out for him to do something with.
If he draws Keeper or something?
Maybe the Keeper. The Haunted Creeper.
Yeah, I think this
Close,
game is just...
I guess.
I think this game just swung out of control from that one turn. It was so important for Reels to Soulfire. That was actually one of the only ways he could lose, was if he didn't Soulfire.
You know, kind of looking back again at what we just saw. We were mentioning earlier in the previous game that Druids, when they have this position where they have the early board lead, whatever they pick up, it's usually beneficial. But, you know, Striker got back-to-back draws where it wasn't exactly the ones he was looking for. You know, Ardent Squire, Haunted Creeper.
Oh. If he does this, what this means is if he swipes the Belcher, it means he's relying purely on drawing Force Nature. But I think if he's got a minion down, that Force Nature is enough anyway. So this prevents him from dying to Soulfire. So he's taking everything into consideration there. When he thinks about swiping the Belcher, it's purely in the face of something like being able to draw Force of Nature and have it be lethal. But if he's got a minion on the board, it's just enough.
Yeah, but this is assuming his opponent can't continue to taunt up. Reels picks up his Belcher, his second one, and he also